Are you considering investing in Asheville real estate market in 2025? With all the hype surrounding this market, it is essential to separate fact from fiction. And in this video, I will dive into the current Asheville real estate market conditions, exploring the factors driving its growth and whether it is a sustainable trend. From housing prices to rental yields, I will examine different options to help you make an informed decision. Whether you are a seasoned investor or a first-time home buyer, this video will give you a realistic perspective on Asheville real estate and help you decide if it's worth the hype. Right now, Asheville's median sales price is $490,000. Average is about $620,000. And right now, we are slowly but surely moving towards more of a balanced market. And if you look over the years, Asheville's market fluctuates just like any other market would. And it went from, if you look at the last 10 years, it went from a very steady buyer's market, then towards more of a balanced market and stayed there for a few years. Then it switched to seller's market, it stayed there for a few years, and now we're moving towards balanced market yet again. Regardless of all these fluctuations, sales price, median sales price, and home prices and home values have been steadily going up. And so what I tell everyone is that unless you have a very high tolerance risk and another 2020 happens or 2021 happens, when buying a real estate in Asheville, North Carolina, you need to approach it from a long-term perspective, meaning do not buy and think that you're gonna sell in a year or two and have rate on return. It's most likely not going to happen. If you're thinking about getting any kind of return on your investment, even if it's your primary residence, you need to plan to hold it for 5 years minimum, better yet 10 years, and then sell when it doubles or triples in value. Now, if you want to take it up a notch and really take it to the next level and invest in Asheville real estate as a secondary, not primary residence, you really have two main options: short-term rental and long-term rental. There are pros and cons and benefits of both. And today I am actually meeting with our business partner, with a mover and shaker, with a fellow agent and property manager here in the Asheville area, Rodrigo Afanador, with Vesta. What's the name? Vesta Property Management. I should know this. Thank you so much for meeting with us. And this actually, the house behind us is actually an active long-term rental. So we're gonna go and look at it inside in just a moment. So being a property manager here in the Asheville area, long-term property manager, I think I know the answer to this, but what is your take? Long-term versus short-term? And what is your weapon of choice, so to speak?
Yeah, well, my weapon of choice is the long-term rentals for sure. A lot of that just comes down to preference. If you want something that's a little bit more hands-off, that's plug and play, long terms are better. Short terms, if you want to be heavily involved, it's going to require that because it's a little bit more of like the hospitality industry.
Okay. So with that, what are the advantages of long-term rentals in your opinion, in your expertise, in your experience? What are they?
I think the biggest benefit to long terms is the stability that they offer. If we go back to the same thing with short-term rentals being a little bit more like hospitality, once you get a good tenant in place and you do a lot of the work up front for a long term, then it's plug and play and it's relatively hands-off until you have to, renew the lease or get a new tenant in place. With short terms, you're always having to tweak things and make changes, and you're kind of living and dying by the reviews. And so that's the big difference.
Right. With that, do long-term tenants leave reviews, or is there ability?
I mean, they can leave reviews, but it's very rare to get like positive reviews from like a long-term tenant.
Right.
Just because you're not selling an experience, you're selling a house. And so, or not a house, but you're trying to create a home, but that's not always gonna be the same thing. Yeah, so typically one of the nice things about long-term rentals is that you don't have to furnish them. Today, we're kind of seeing a house that's an exception because it was a short-term rental. But the long-term rentals, they're gonna typically have less upfit costs because you're not doing anything to the inside in addition to, right? If a house needs work for short-term or long-term, you're going to do the work that it needs to be done. But most long-terms, you're going to stop there. You're not going to upfit it and put in furnishings or dining ware or linens, etc.
Okay. So by the way, if you are interested in renting this property, you can scan this QR code right here or find the Instagram account, Asheville Treehouse Lodge, follow them, and see what it's all about here. And area specific, I know, just like homes for sale, probably homes for rent, there's also some, things that people need to keep in mind when it comes to the area. What are the current expectations of renters in the Asheville area?
Yeah, right now it's a unique time to be a landlord and a renter. I've been doing this for a long time, and I think that this is the first time in 10 years that it's cheaper to rent a house than it is to buy a house.
Really?
And so I think if you're a renter and you're wanting to move to Asheville, this is the best time to get the most house for your buck, right? The biggest bang for your buck. And as a landlord, that means you have to know that this really is a long-term investment.
Okay.
The first year or 2 years, while we kind of let the market settle, it might be a little painful, and you just have to play the long-term game.
And if you remember one of my previous videos, recent videos about renting versus buying, and I laid out all the advantages of renting first, long-term, meaning not just a few days at Airbnb and checking out the area like a tourist, but if you haven't been here, with the eyes of a local, it makes sense to rent a house, get to know the area, decide whether or not you even want to be in the area before making a huge investment and jumping into home ownership. So that's where Rodrigo and his team comes in. They have a huge database. Inventory is changing all the time, but check out their website for current listings for rent. With all the competition, with all that's going on, oversaturation, what do you do to stand out among competitors? How do you help your clients get the most out of their rental property?
Yeah, so right now it's a tough market to really focus on getting the most. What we're trying to do right now is focus on getting the best tenant. And so unfortunately, sometimes that does require doing some price decreases. But the way to thread that needle is to really focus on where are the first impressions that give confidence in the tenant that a house is managed by somebody who cares. So we focus on, like, is the front door in good shape? We've just started doing this recently, that all of the houses we put out fresh doormats for the going in and out. So just small things like that where you can give confidence to whoever the tenant is that they're going to be in good hands and that it's like a relationship that they can trust. Communication's key, right? We try to respond to most inquiries within the first couple of hours that they reach out to us, or faster, schedule those showings as soon as we can. As we're moving somebody through the application process, we're letting them know, like, hey, your application's complete. Hey, all we're missing is your verification of employment. And letting them know where the finish line is and how far away they are.
Awesome. So Rodrigo, what is your advice to people who are thinking into getting into investing in long-term rentals here in the area? How to identify some properties, what to look for in them?
Yeah, so the way we kind of frame that question is like, what's the buy box? And so when you're looking at long-term rentals, I always ask people, are they buying mostly for appreciation or for cash flow? Because that's going to dictate a little bit about where and what type of property you buy. And the other thing is risk tolerance. Like, are you willing to have something that's going to sit longer, require a lot of work, etc.? So those are the two things that we really ask people to consider if they're asking us for what they should buy or where they should buy. So once you've decided kind of where you want to fall on the spectrum of appreciation versus cash flow and like your risk tolerance, that really helps you narrow down kind of what class of property you're going to buy. Are you going to be in a Class A property, which would be similar to the property we're in today? You can think of like a luxury type of unit, something that's really nice, has a lot of amenities, or something that would be a Class D, would be typically heavy cash flow. It's going to be a lot more risk, and a Class D is kind of, you know, the nice way to put it, or the colloquial way to put it, is like a slumlord type of property that everybody knows but nobody really wants to live in.
And another thing is, I know our area, at least from a buy-sell perspective, is not super heavy on multifamily. Duplexes are super hard to come by, or fourplexes. What about, you know, investing in different types of properties? Yeah,
it's, you know, the most common property here that you're going to see is going to be like a single family house or a converted single family house into a duplex, where it's not really a real duplex, but it's being used as a duplex. You do have a few fourplexes or kind of small multifamily units. They do exist, but to your point, they're very rare. If you want something multifamily, it's more common to find like mobile home parks. Those are more available, but they do require a little bit more willingness to roll up your sleeves and do some work.
Okay, so what is the rule of thumb when it comes to the price you pay versus the income you get?
Yeah, so when I first got started in real estate, the rule of thumb was always 1% off of whatever the purchase price was. So if you were buying something for $100,000, you would know it's a good deal if you had confidence you could rent it for $1,000 a month.
Okay.
I don't think that that's been true in Asheville for a long time. And then this is where the power of the deal comes in. And so you have to get creative on where you're buying. Maybe you have to go a little bit further outside, like Canton, Marion, etc. Or you have to be buying for something that's not cash flow and you're focusing more on appreciation.
Is it possible to have?
It's possible to have both, but I mean, you know, if you're focusing on both, then your cash flow might be like $50 a month instead of a couple $100 a month.
Okay.
The closer you get into Asheville, like as we all know, prices go up.
Right.
The higher the prices go, the less cash flow you're gonna have in general.
Right, and the areas outside of Asheville are not off limits and shouldn't be off limits, and they are of interest to a lot of renters, right?
100%. I don't think that we're seeing, at least in our portfolio, a big difference in, like, it's just as easy or hard to rent a property in Waynesville today as it is in downtown Asheville.
Okay. Well, if you have any questions, if you want to learn more, if you need help, and I highly recommend outsourcing this kind of work to professionals who will not only do all the work for you, they will screen your tenants, which is important. It can be, I mean, seriously, who's going to do an eviction if the payment is not made? Who's going to screen your tenants and make sure that, you know, they're legible and they should be in your property, because this is your biggest, for most people, real estate is the biggest investment. So it only makes sense to have another professional handle all those matters for you. And Rodrigo and his team is here for you.
And Elena, if I may, like one last thing. The only worse thing than having a property that's vacant and sitting for a while is renting it to somebody who's a bad tenant, because that can set back your cash flow and your investment projections by a year or more, depending on how much damage they do to the property or how expensive it is to get them out of the property if you have to go through the eviction route. So vacancies are terrible, but a bad tenant is even worse than that.
If you decide that long-term rental investment is not your thing and you really want to explore investing in short-term rentals, well, today I am meeting with Kaya with ℨ who is actually our business partner, and they are managing a couple of our personal short-term rentals. And he is a great resource when it comes to all things short-term rentals. So Kaya, thank you for meeting with me today. Long-term versus short-term, and why? Why short-term rental is your weapon of choice?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Kaya Ebert. I'm an owner and operator of ℨ. We currently have 50 properties that we manage, lease, and own. And the reason that we prefer short-term rentals is because you can generate a lot more cash flow. Especially in today's market, there's a lot of properties that people are going out and buying, and they're cash flowing $100, $200, $300. And they're doing this for equity plays, but we prefer short-term rentals because not only can we have large equity plays, but we can cash flow $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, and sometimes, in some cases, $10,000 a month on some properties.
So what are the key advantages of having a short-term rental as an investment as opposed to long-term rental as an investment?
So there's three things that come to mind. Number one is obviously cash flow. You can produce a lot more income with these properties. I'd say number two is there's a lot more tax incentives. Whenever you're going out and buying furniture, you can depreciate them a lot more aggressively. And then I would say number three, your property actually stays in a for sale condition year round. So instead of getting a long-term tenant in there that's living in there for a year and you're not seeing the inside of your property, I have cleaners in there 3 times a week and a handyman in there once a week. So
Right.
I could list my property on the market anytime I want.
So I know that it's been very saturated here in the area with short-term rentals. How do you stand out among competition / what are the current expectations of renters when they come and pick and choose a short-term rental to stay in?
So I'll definitely say the expectation of renters is increasing every single day, and that's because competition continues to get on the market. So when people are looking at places to stay and they see that this house has a pool or a pickleball court or a virtual reality room, which we just recently did, it incentivizes them to come and stay at that property as opposed to somebody else's property.
Okay.
And so how we like to stay competitive is we basically want to create the top 1% products in our market. So we'll go and we'll do the market research and we'll see what properties are overperforming, what revenue are they producing, and then how can we create a product that is actually better than that listing. And so that's kind of how we've been able to make money.
Is it possible for somebody who is thinking maybe about investing in short-term rentals here in the area, is it possible to find and buy a short-term rental that is, or maybe, have a short-term rental that would be ready to go as soon as they buy it and have it produce the income?
So I will say, if somebody wants to go out and buy a vacation rental today and it's already furnished, they're most likely not going to buy it at a price that they could cash flow immediately. But something that you can do is, if there are people that have good homes or what are called good products that are underperforming, you could go and buy that property, and with very minimal work, you could have a cash flowing asset within under a month.
If they improve something about...
If they make the right improvements.
And what are those improvements?
So I will say probably one of the biggest things is your design, making sure that you're providing a cohesive design, you're providing unique design and amenities, things that other competitors are not providing. I'll also say location is really big. So depending on why people are booking your home, what is your location?
Piggyback on that, what are the top amenities?
Absolutely. So we would say for probably a smaller property that's sleeping maybe 2 to 3 people, you'd want to go with more of like a health or wellness feel. So that would be like your sauna, your hot tub, maybe even some yoga mats and some weights. And for our larger properties, we want to kind of go for more of that resort feel. So we're looking to include large amenities like pools and cinemas and doing hardscaping and places that people can gather and enjoy time with each other.
I know this property is not ready yet, but I believe we do have footage of the property that we just launched.
Yep.
You and us.
Yes, ma'am.
So we'll include it to give you a glimpse of what they do, how they turn a house that's empty, absolutely empty, has nothing, just walls, into short-term rental, turnkey short-term rental in less than 30 days. It's amazing. So what are the key things people should identify, be aware of before getting into short-term rental business?
Absolutely.
In this area?
So there's a couple of things that come to mind that people don't really take into consideration when getting into vacation rentals. Number one is definitely the cost to upfit the property. So most people with long-term rentals, if you're buying a home turnkey, all you have to do is move tenants inside. But with a vacation rental, there will be a cost in order to get it fully designed, upfitted, and to have the right amenities in order to get the revenue that you want. Number two, I would say, is the expenses to run a vacation rental. So a lot of people see the gross amount of money that they could make short-term renting their home, and they think that that's what's going in their pocket. And so I would really recommend is whenever you're looking at a vacation rental, you're not only considering your mortgage, but you're considering your utilities, which are your expense now, any other type of expenses or restocking of supplies, and also your cleaners and your calls to your handyman. So those would probably be the two things I'd recommend people look at before they go and buy something.
And so the management is also different in short-term rentals. Is it really a passive kind of business or a stream of income, as people might think?
So that's a really great question. Another thing that people should consider is whenever they're getting into vacation rentals, it is different than long-term, and they're going to have to spend a lot more time on their properties. There are a lot of things that go into your property, like pricing, like making sure your photos and your listing are optimized. You're communicating with guests on a daily basis. And so that's kind of why we're able to make money, is because people like Elena, for example, had a property that she turned into a vacation rental and realized that there was a lot more work involved than she was expecting. And so yeah, I would definitely consider the work that is involved in running a vacation rental.
And last question I want to ask, what is the latest, the greatest, something that nobody else has in terms of amenities?
A virtual reality room. Basically the first competitor in this market to have a virtual reality room, which I think is really cool.
It is cool.
Yeah.
If you are thinking about buying, selling, or investing in the Asheville area, our team and I would be honored to be your real estate experts of choice. Our contact information is down in the description.